One is about a man who can't find the guacamole in his burrito. And he gets very worried about this because he can't find this piece of guacamole. There's another fellow who's worried about his team not making the playoffs, and he sits there in a chair worrying about what he's going to do if he'd be there all the time. If birds will come in and make a nest in his hair, he can't speak birds. He's worried. Worry is a form of fear. And there are really 4 types of fear. Some fear is actually pleasurable. This type of fear you get when you're on a roller coaster, on a slide, or at the fair, or sometimes watching those kind of movies that make you really tense. Some fear is beneficial, the type you get when you're going to write an exam, or when you know there might be black ice in the road. It keeps you alert. Much fear is due to circumstances. The Bible's full of people who were fearful under circumstances. When Abraham was in Egypt, he told Sarah, his wife, to say she was his sister because he was fearful for his life if Pharaoh found out. When Moses was asked to go to Pharaoh, he was fearful. He told God that he couldn't go because he was poor of speech. Jonah was fearful about going to Nineveh, and he went in the opposite direction, but God persuaded him to change his mind. Elijah showed a great deal of strength and courage when he faced the prophets of Baal, and yet afterwards he hid in a cave because he was afraid of Jezebel. Fear. There's a type of fear which is pervasive. It's there all the time. People worry about fear. They worry about things. They never seem to get away from it, and it controls the lives of more and more people as time goes on. Fear is mentioned over 400 times in the Bible. And the main place it's mentioned is in the phrase, fear not. We are not supposed to have a spirit of fear. 2 Timothy says this, for God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. We are told that we are to have a spirit of faith rather than one of fear. And if we have that faith, then the fear, if it's there, and everybody will have some at some times, but it will be transient. Fear not is used mostly in the Bible, is the time when fear is used mostly in the Bible, is that phrase, fear not. But the second place it's used in the Bible the most is when it says to fear God. People today fear everything but God. And part of the reason is that God has been somewhat emasculated. He's been made into this heavenly grandfather who approves of everything. And it's all love. And people say, if God is so loving, how can he send people to hell? The question should be, if he's holy and righteous, how can he take sinners to heaven? You see, we have a point that we no longer fear God. Now, some people say that fear means respect, and it does that, but it's more than that. If it was to respect God, the Bible would say, respect God. But this is a very healthy respect. This is a respect that borders on a type of fear and apprehension because we forget that God has power and of his overall character. We don't appreciate the fact that he is holy and righteous. and that he has the power to take us to heaven or not. It says in Matthew 10:28, "Fear not them which can kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body." But we don't. We don't have the fear of God that we need. And sometimes we procrastinate so long in making decisions that we lose out. It is said that procrastination has never taken anyone to heaven, but it has sent many to hell. In the late 1800s, D.L. Moody was preaching in Chicago to a large audience. And he was speaking on accepting Christ, and one of his last statements was to the audience to go home and think about what had been said, to think about what they would do, and to come back the next week and give their answers to him and to God. After he spoke, the choir started to sing a song, a hymn. But they only got through the first verse, because they were interrupted by shouts and by cries and by people outside and by bells ringing. You see, that was the night of the Great Chicago Fire. The next day, Chicago was in ruins, and many of the people at that meeting perished. D.L. Moody said he would never again give people the option to wait a week before an invitation. The problem with the world today is that we don't fear God. These are just like the days of Noah, where people went about their business, making merry, having fun, marrying and giving in marriage, and all the rest of the things that we do, but have lost the fear of God. It is good to fear. It is good to fear the right things. It is good to fear in the right way. Fear God. Fear God. Really nothing else but fear God. Something to think about.